everybody is having a great day today as we get prepared for another Shedeur Sanders saga. Now, we know news broke yesterday that Shedeur Sanders was dealing with an oblique injury. Like I said, a lot of people was clueless and pretty much saying that the young man was not hurt. He's hurt, guys. He would not be faking an injury like this. He will not be missing his reps. And for people to even say that narrative is mind-boggling to me. It's what it is. But with all of that being said, we got an update from Kevin Stefanski talking about Shedeur and pretty much the process is going to take for him to get back. Let's listen.
We want to see Shedeur again this weekend, right? I want to see that story. He was making things real interesting there in Cleveland. But, man, like oblique injury – I know we've talked a little bit in the past. Oblique injury is tough for a quarterback. It's not the type of thing that you're just going to go, oh, I'll be okay in a few days. I mean, I'd be. Of course, there's no way he's playing this weekend, I would think. And then what I would worry about is preseason game number 3, whether he can play then as well, right? And it's an issue. Again, as we talk about throwing the ball, the torque of the up.
The Cleveland Browns front office is in absolute chaos right now. And sources close to the organization are whispering that ownership is not happy with how Kevin Stefanski handled the Shedeur Sanders injury situation. While Stefanski's out here, playing it cool in press conferences, behind closed doors, it's a completely different story. And what I'm about to tell you might shock you. We're talking about a potential coaching change that could shake the entire NFL, all because of how this rookie quarterback's oblique injury was mismanaged. The pressure is mounting. The fans are getting restless. And let me tell you something. When Browns ownership starts asking questions, heads are about to roll. What's good, everybody? Your boy back with another explosive Browns update that's got Cleveland in complete meltdown mode. And listen, if you thought the Deshaun Watson situation was messy, wait until you hear what's happening behind closed doors with Kevin Stefanski and this Shedeur Sanders injury controversy.
Yeah, felt it early, warming up, and felt it throughout individuals who took a look at it. If it's a right guard, you can play through that. When it's a quarterback, you kind of need that muscle to throw. So unfortunately, I'm going to put him down for a little bit here. We'll treat it day to day and see how it responds, but I want to be smart because he can throw, so you can't push that thing.
It's such a critical point in your evaluation of these quarterbacks. How does it affect your evaluation of the quarterbacks?
Yeah, listen, injuries stink for all these guys. They don't want to miss a rep for any reason, Tony, but there's a way to continue to prepare, continue to get better, even when you're not getting the reps. Because of it.
It's an oblique coming in a lot like a hamstring. Is that one of those injuries that, it gets a little tricky to...
I think it's just with throwers and pitchers and guys that tour.
Now, here's what nobody's talking about. Browns fans are already calling for Stefanski's head after some controversial post-game comments about Shedeur Sanders. And this oblique injury situation just threw gasoline on an already burning fire. You see that clip from practice where Shedeur's just tossing the ball, and you can see him wince and grab his side? That wasn't some minor tweak. That was a quarterback feeling legitimate pain. And yet there's still people out here questioning whether this kid is really hurt. But here's where it gets real spicy. My sources are telling me that Browns ownership is absolutely furious about how this whole situation is being handled. Think about it. You draft this generational talent. The fans are finally excited about something after years of disappointment. And then your coaching staff can't even keep him healthy in practice? That's not just bad luck. That's a pattern of mismanagement that goes all the way to the top. Now let's break down exactly what happened, because Kevin Stefanski's explanation doesn't add up. He said Shedeur felt it early, warming up, and then felt it throughout individuals. Now, any competent coaching staff should be monitoring their rookie quarterback like a hawk, especially one with this much hype and expectation. But somehow, they let him continue practicing through pain until it got bad enough that he had to shut it down completely. Listen to how Stefanski tried to downplay this. We'll treat it day to day and see how he responds. But want to be smart because he's a thrower. Day to day? Bro, oblique injuries for quarterbacks are serious. The injury bug keeps troubling Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns as dark clouds are looming over Shedeur Sanders. And this isn't some coincidence. Here's what really happened. Stefanski and his staff pushed this kid too hard, too fast. They're trying to evaluate 4 quarterbacks when they can barely keep 2 of them healthy. Dillon Gabriel's dealing with hamstring issues. Kenny Pickett's had his own problems, and now Shedeur's sidelined with an oblique strain. That's not development, that's dysfunction.
In week 2 and week 3 of the preseason, it creates a groundswell of fan demand to flip it. And if he's not going to play this weekend, then I think it's going to be hard to derail Joe Flacco being the week 1 starter. So they're acting as if he's going to be. They kept him in bubble wrap.
And here's the kicker that nobody's connecting the dots on. Browns ownership plays a key role in football decisions, and they're not happy with what they're seeing. Jimmy Haslam didn't spend millions on this quarterback room just to watch Stefanski mismanage their biggest assets. You want to know why Browns ownership is really steamed? Because they're watching other rookie quarterbacks around the league getting proper development while their golden boy is sitting in the training room. Caleb Williams is lighting it up in Chicago, Jaden Daniels is showing flashes in Washington, and Shedeur Sanders, the guy who was supposed to be the most NFL ready, can't even stay on the field. But here's where Stefanski really stepped in it. When asked about the evaluation process, he basically admitted that injuries are disrupting his ability to properly assess these quarterbacks. Listen, injuries stink for all these guys. They don't want to miss a rep for any reason. Well, Kevin, maybe if your training staff was doing their job properly, these guys wouldn't be dropping like flies. The truth is, Stefanski's seat was already warming up after last season's disaster. Browns nearly axed their GM before Kevin Stefanski stepped in. Now pressure mounts as the team enters 2025 season. He saved Andrew Berry's job, but who's going to save his when the results don't match the expectations? And let's talk about the elephant in the room, the fan reaction. Calls mount for Browns HC Kevin Stefanski to make Shedeur Sanders QB1 after preseason opener. The fans saw what Shedeur could do in that limited action against Carolina. 14 of 23 for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. They want more, not less. They want to see this kid develop, not sit on the sidelines with preventable injuries. Here's what's really eating at Browns ownership. They know they have something special with Shedeur. This isn't just another draft pick. This is potentially their franchise quarterback for the next decade. But instead of nurturing that talent, Stefanski's system is breaking him down before he even gets started. Think about the optics here. You've got Joe Flacco, who's 40 years old, staying healthier than your 22-year-old rookie. You've got Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett both dealing with soft tissue injuries. And now Shedeur is hurt with something that could linger if not handled properly. That's not unlucky. That's systematic failure. But here's the twist that makes this whole situation even more controversial. Browns coach Kevin Stefanski halts Shedeur Sanders' hype train. Right when the fans are getting excited, right when there's momentum building, Stefanski pumps the brakes. Why? Because he's more worried about managing expectations than maximizing talent. Ownership sees this, and they're asking themselves a simple question. Is Kevin Stefanski the right coach to develop our future? Because if you can't keep your quarterbacks healthy, if you can't create a competitive environment without injuries piling up, then what exactly are you bringing to the table? And here's the part that should have every Browns fan worried. The schedule. They're facing some of the toughest defenses in the NFL early in the season. Bengals, Ravens, Lions, Vikings. These aren't teams you want to face with a patchwork quarterback situation. But thanks to Stefanski's mismanagement, that's exactly where they're headed. The irony is thick here. Stefanski was brought in as a quarterback whisperer, someone who could develop talent and maximize potential. But what has he really accomplished? He inherited a team with playoff talent and managed one good season. Since then, it's been disappointment after disappointment, and now he's potentially damaging the most important piece of Cleveland's future. Sources close to the organization are telling me that ownership is asking tough questions. Questions like, why can't we keep our quarterbacks healthy? Why does our training staff seem unprepared for the demands of developing young talent? And most importantly, is Kevin Stefanski the right leader for this franchise moving forward? Now, here's where it gets really interesting for Shedeur specifically. Despite all this chaos, despite the injury concerns, despite Stefanski's attempt to manage expectations, the kid has already shown he belongs. That performance against Carolina wasn't luck. That was pure talent shining through limited opportunities. Shedeur Sanders' rise challenges his developmental label as injury concerns, and a QB crisis forced Stefanski into tough decisions. The front office drafted him knowing he was pro-ready, not some long-term project. They expected him to compete for the starting job, not sit in meetings while his oblique heals. And let's be real about something else. The Browns fan base is done with excuses. They've watched this organization mishandle quarterback after quarterback. For decades, they thought they finally had something different with Shedeur, a generational talent who could change the culture. Now they're watching the same old Browns dysfunction play out in real time. The pressure on Stefanski isn't just coming from ownership, it's coming from every direction. The media is starting to ask harder questions. The fans are getting restless. And most importantly, the players are watching to see if this coaching staff can actually develop talent or if they're just going to waste another opportunity. Here's what Browns ownership is really thinking. We gave you Joe Flacco as a safety net. We gave you multiple draft picks to work with. We built a competitive quarterback room. And you still can't deliver results without injuries derailing everything. At what point do we look for someone who can actually manage talent properly? The oblique injury is just the latest example of a bigger problem. It's not about bad luck. It's about preparation, conditioning, and smart management of valuable assets. When you're dealing with a quarterback who could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars to your franchise, you don't take chances with his health in meaningless practices. But here's the thing about Shedeur that makes this whole situation even more frustrating for Browns fans. This kid is tough. He played through contact at Colorado. He's not afraid of getting hit, and he's mentally prepared for the NFL grind. So when an injury like this happens, it raises questions about the training methods and preparation protocols. The really crazy part? While Stefanski's out here talking about being day-to-day and not wanting to rush anything, other teams are getting their rookie quarterbacks valuable reps and development time. Chicago isn't babying Caleb Williams. Washington isn't holding back Jaden Daniels. But Cleveland is treating their first-round pick like he's made of glass. And that's exactly the kind of conservative, scared coaching that ownership is getting tired of. They didn't invest in this quarterback room to play it safe. They invested to find their franchise quarterback and build around him. But you can't build around a guy who's constantly dealing with preventable injuries. Here's the bottom line that Browns ownership is looking at. Kevin Stefanski has had 5 years to prove he can develop quarterbacks and manage a successful program. The results speak for themselves. One playoff appearance, multiple quarterback controversies, and now a situation where his most promising prospect is hurt before the regular season even starts. The whispers are getting louder around Cleveland. Ownership is asking whether it's time for a fresh start, someone who can actually maximize the talent they've invested in, someone who understands that development and health management go hand in hand. But here's what gives me hope for Shedeur's future, regardless of what happens with the coaching situation. This kid has the mental toughness to overcome anything. He's dealt with pressure his entire life. He's proven himself at every level, and one oblique injury isn't going to derail a career that's destined for greatness. The real question isn't whether Shedeur will bounce back from this injury. It's whether the Browns organization will finally get serious about putting the right people in place to support his development. And if that means making tough decisions about the coaching staff, then maybe it's time ownership stopped talking and started taking action. Because here's the truth that every Browns fan knows, but nobody wants to say out loud. Talent without proper development is just wasted potential. And Cleveland has wasted enough potential for several lifetimes. So what do you think? Is Stefanski really on the hot seat? Or is this just typical Cleveland drama? Are the Browns finally ready to make the tough decisions necessary to build a championship organization? Or will they continue the same patterns that have kept them mediocre for decades? And most importantly, do you believe Shedeur Sanders is tough enough to overcome this setback and still emerge as the franchise quarterback Cleveland desperately needs? Or is this injury just the beginning of another Browns quarterback controversy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know if you think ownership should make a change now or give Stefanski one more chance to prove himself. This situation is developing fast, and I'll be bringing you every update as it happens. If you want to stay ahead of all the Browns drama and insider information, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, with everything happening in Cleveland right now, you don't want to miss what's coming next. This story is just getting started.